Today, I interview Chris, who has cured a chronic ulcerative skin disease with hyperbaric oxygen therapy and who is successfully treating chronic Lyme disease with ozone therapy and the carnivore diet. Chris, welcome to the program and thank you for agreeing to this interview once again.
Once again, well, thank you very much, Paula, and thank you for giving me the opportunity for the interview.
All right, so let's start with the questions. So you had some pretty scary experience with an infection that you developed after surgery, and nothing seemed to help except one thing, right?
Correct. Just to clarify, in April 2017, I resorted to a regretful partial intestinal surgery, and at this time, I had no idea what was going wrong with me. It wasn't just my intestines; it was a lot of my organs failing. And unfortunately, I listened to family members who told me to listen to the American doctors, and all of them gave me a lot of pharmaceutical medications and kept making me worse. And I actually strongly believe they contributed to my intestinal problems. And they recommended a partial intestinal surgery from the problems they caused in April 2017. And within a few weeks, first of all, the surgery was horrendous. It was not pleasant. I was very limited afterwards. And then within a few weeks after the surgery, as some of the photos that I provided to you, Paula, I developed a very severe infection where it was underneath the skin. You didn't see like an open wound, but my lower abdomen swelled up to the size of a grapefruit. And I kept reporting it to the hospital. I said, I think I have a problem. They kept ignoring me. They said, it's just hematoma, some BS American medicine jargon. And then it kept growing larger and larger. And I was about to cut it open with a knife because it was getting so horrendous. They finally said, go to the ER. And they had to recut me open twice and drain out all the infection. And they didn't even want to sew it up because the infection kept coming back. So what they had me do is basically keep the wound open and clean out the wound every day for 3 weeks with a Q-tip. And it was all the way down to my lower intestine. And if you see the after photos, it was pretty horrendous. But as we'll kind of discuss, the hyperbaric oxygen therapy is something that truly healed it, as well as the ozone therapy and carnivore diet. So shortly afterwards, as we can probably further discuss, is that I was very limited after the surgery. I eventually had a hip surgery right afterwards because everything was falling apart. That surgery right here, if I got diagnosed with Lyme disease afterwards because I told the American doctors, get away from me. And I told my family members, I'm not listening to you. I have some kind of underlying infection, something shutting my body down. I've been a former athlete, trainer, and bodybuilder when I was in law school. I shouldn't fall apart like this. And then it tested positive for Lyme disease, Bartonella, and Babesia. And I started doing some alternative treatments. I didn't go into the ozone therapy or the hyperbaric oxygen. They gave me some little booster IVs basically, and it helped a little bit. And then in 2018, I started developing a very severe skin disease, as I described to you. But I'll let you ask the comments too, so I can shut my mouth and open up my ears too.
Yeah, explain what this disease was, because you sent me some pictures. I'm gonna blend them over later on so that people.
Yeah, sure. So I started developing all these bruises on my limbs. It was kind of weird. It's on my limbs. Some of them is where these Lyme doctors, so the columnists, they said, well, okay, you got to boost your beach weld. They started giving me beach weld injections. Some of those injections started developing bruises, but even when I wasn't injecting in certain areas of my body, I developed a bruise, and it developed into an ulceration. And I had no idea what was going on. I was like, my body is falling apart. I thought I had leprosy. I was like, what is going on? I am not healing. And if I cut myself like when I was preparing some food, my cuts wouldn't heal. I was like, I am falling apart. So I went to all these doctors, and they, just like the previous doctor, just made me worse. They just started giving me all these antibiotics pharmaceutical BS medication, injections, ointments, and they made the infection worse. Stayed away from them. I was like, I should have learned my lesson from the prior doctor. So I wanted to get a specialist, and some colleagues recommended a dermatologist who's very well known, and he's got a long waiting list, and he took a biopsy. He's like, you got a very rare skin disease. He sent it to the lab. It's called Pyoderma Gangrenosum. It's actually a life-threatening skin disease where your skin will basically eat itself up and cause ulcers all over your body. And some people even have their limbs amputated because you just develop a very chronic kind of inflammatory process that your skin falls off, basically. And being like a former kind of like, even when I was published in magazines, when I was a bodybuilder, I was like, I am not gonna let my body fall apart like this. And I told him all these treatments weren't working. He said we could try some corticosteroids, but there's one treatment that I'm not that familiar with, but I know they do it in Europe quite a bit. And it's got some very promising results that may work for you. And he told me about hyperbaric oxygen therapy. He said, try to find little big hospitals. I can give him the case studies. I could write a report about your diagnosis with the lab results. And hopefully, even if insurance doesn't approve it, try to find another location and just pay out of pocket. It's your only hope. So I went to some of the larger hospitals like St. Joseph's over in Orange County. I'm in Los Angeles County of California, United States. And they submitted to the insurance as that expected, because I don't trust health insurance companies, just like I don't trust the FDA, just like I don't trust Dr. Fauci. But let's just say they just flat out ignored it. And they said, we're not going to reimburse. And then when I asked the doctor, I was like, well, it's a big hospital. Someone who's waiting money for the insurance, who's falsifying a lot of reports. They said, look, I think they estimated like per treatment, $2,500 for the hard chambers. And I studied this to a great extent. I was like, there's got to be another option. I am not going to be, because I may need like 30 or 40 sessions. Who knows? I was like, so I'm going to pay $100,000 or something like that. So it was ridiculous. So I found another smaller clinic, but it was a hard chamber. They look like submarine tanks, but they actually do it for diver sickness, but they do it for a lot of different patients. So I found it out through some colleagues. It was called Advanced Hyperbarics. It's also in Orange County. And you would never kind of expect this like a promising facility, because it was kind of in it's questionable area. And they actually gave me a really good deal. They said, look, you can get a package where you're going to be paying between 125 to 150 a session. We haven't treated your specific disease, but we've treated a lot of people with diabetic ulcers. They're about to lose their limbs off their body because they're basically, due to neuropathy and a lot of other reasons, infections. This is the strongest healing power, and we go up to ultimate oxygen into your body, which is measured, and we discussed, it's called ATA, atmosphere is absolute. And it can actually regenerate your body and heal these. And since it's so much oxygen, it can kill off any infections. So I bought a package. I was going at least once or twice a week for about a month. And I bought a soft chamber at home. The soft chamber doesn't infuse as much oxygen, but I wanted everything to keep down my inflammation. And this is about the same time I did the carnivore diet. We'll discuss that. But within a month, after having these ulcerations for almost a year that were falling off my body, completely healed. And I just had some lingering scars because it was an ulcer for such a period of time. It's just a different pigment. And then I had to treat the scars afterwards. But then I learned so many benefits for the hyperbaric oxygen that I wanted to keep doing it because I felt great. My gut felt better. My joints felt better. I still had some lingering Lyme issues, as we could discuss, which I kind of treated with Ozone and Carnivore. And I made friends with the owner, and he became my client because I'm an attorney. And I was like, you know what? I do a lot of real estate, because he asked me, he's like, I may need your help. What kind of law do you do? I said, I do a lot of real estate law. I'm also a real estate broker. So I basically started going over his commercial lease, and we did like an exchange program where I help him out and he helps me out, and I don't have to pay for the treatment. So it was amazing, and it made a huge change in my life.
Awesome. So have you ever found out where you got the infection from? Was it something that had to do with
No, so this weird infection, this Pyoderma Gangrenosum, some people call it as like a very bad inflammatory disease, but if you see these ulcers, you'll say this is an infection too. it's usually with people that have some kind of debilitating disease in conjunction to this disease. Like that's something greater. A lot of people, it's for cancer. And when I showed this dermatologist, after he showed me the biopsy, he asked me if I had a certain type of cancer. And I said, you know what? I actually got diagnosed with Lyme disease after a very regretful surgery from some crook surgeon. I got the separate. I showed him the test results. He's like, that explains it. Lyme, and he actually considered it because he's actually been on the PGA tour and he's very reputable. He's like, Lyme disease is pretty much like a cancer. For a lot of people, you just got to keep it in remission. And just like they say in the medical field, N=1. Not every treatment suits everybody. Everybody's kind of individualized, but I actually just reached out to him not too long ago and I gave him like a thank you for just mentioning hyperbaric oxygen. And I studied it to a great extent. And I have some kind of health degrees on the side of being an attorney, and I used to be a personal trainer most of my life. So I got very interested, and actually I'm just trying to promote hyperbaric oxygen to the rest of the community and to get them away from these crooked American doctors who are making people worse.
Mm-hmm. So then why did you start with the carnivore diet, and what results did you see with that?
The reason why I started with the carnivore diet is because I learned, I was already having problems up until this regretful surgery because I'm not sure why my body was shut down. I was getting all these food sensitivities. Everything was causing inflammation. I started doing this elimination diet, and I realized that all these plant foods were causing the worst inflammation. And even certain like fats, because I started doing ketogenic, because I learned that carbohydrates were completely out of the question. But I even learned that certain fats that are plant-based were causing inflammation. And like people wouldn't expect, like there is some great benefits to coconut oil, but coconut oil was causing great inflammation. I kind of researched and I started getting all these case studies about people that have healed ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, and irritable bowel diseases with just a pure carnivore diet. And I actually had some people that kind of just recommended me to try it out, kind of work it out. And I actually met a lot. I went to these support groups, and I found out there's a lot of people that had Lyme disease that actually kind of kept the Lyme in semi-remission with just the carnivore diet. You may hear some kind of people like Rebecca Farmer. She's actually a popular social media kind of addict right now, and I became friends with her. And she actually has similar, not the same exact diseases, but similar diseases, very bad inflammatory ulcerative colitis, bad bowel issues, and Lyme disease. And she was severely underweight, and she looks like a model now. And she just went straight to and she put on like good, like swimsuit model, like muscle tone. So I researched someone gave me a link. I started doing just at home, just trying it out. Let's just do the beef diet. Okay. I'm gonna switch off to like that lean, no more lean meats, which I was kind of told as a bodybuilder, because you're eating a lot of lean chicken and fish. And I actually a clinic that's based out of Budapest, and these doctors, they actually try to help the community, unlike these American doctors. So they're known as Paleomedicina, but they're also known as the International Center of Medical Nutrition Intervention. They basically just treat diseases and inflammatory autoimmune conditions with just diet itself. No supplements. You're not allowed to take any supplements. It's just quality four-legged animals, okay, that are very fatty based, more than ketogenic, and water and salt, and that is it. Okay, so they're based out of Budapest, Hungary, and I Skyped with them, and I said they looked at my history and they said, we can kind of help you out with some of your problems with your autoimmune. And I looked at their case studies, and they're one of the few clinics that actually does clinical trials, the before and after, and they actually have cured ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, a lot of irritable bowel, even colon cancer. They put it in remission just by diet itself. But it's got to be 80% fat. So you're eating so much animal fat. And as a bodybuilder, and when you're kind of learning this mainstream medicine, you're like, whoa, fat. So that animal fat's worse. I know ketogenic, you can do some great quality fats, like, some fish oil and stuff like that. But I stayed over there for a week, and I couldn't believe on how well I improved after eating some of the fattiest meats you can find. And I showed you some photos, and it's a lot of it is pork fat slabs, and they do, but they have a very quality pork like you'll never find in the United States or anywhere else. It's actually they don't feed it any corn or soy, and they actually it's pasture raised like right in their backyard, and they have it like next to the clinic. So
what symptoms improved during that time?
A lot of the stomach pain, and some of these American doctors, not only did they put you on antibiotics, but they put you on all these laxatives that are just completely wreck your gut. They told me no supplementation. I was like, oh, these doctors gave me these laxatives. Should I be taking them? I'm trying to like wean off them. They said, you're not allowed to take anything, but they served you so much fat. And this is almost like an oxymoron, Paula, is that, it's almost like as you're transitioning into it, it's kind of uncomfortable because you almost get like diarrhea, but you get like comfortable diarrhea where it's not burning. It's like, wow, it just kind of floats right through. Because I had the stricture for my intestine from the surgery where the intestine was pinched down to this. So staying away from fiber, people think, oh, you need fiber, but fiber is causing a blockage. You put a big undigestible fiber through a small kind of canal in your intestine, and it just made it worse. And it scratches your intestines, and that's what fiber does, really, to be honest with you. But then it started normalizing, and everything just started feeling amazing. And then I realized that a lot of my joint pain and all these other autoimmune issues resolving as well. I did that right before I started the hyperbaric oxygen. That kind of helped the intestinal issues, but it wasn't getting rid of the skin disease. And that's where I had to tie in with this hyperbaric oxygen.
So the carnivore diet did not help with the skin disease. Is that what you're saying?
I think it kind of, I can tell that the ulcers were not so inflamed, but they're still infected and they're still present. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say it didn't help at all. I would say it did help. And then they don't like to be, even though we'll call it the carnivore diet, they don't like to be labeled as the carnivore diet. They label themselves as the paleo-ketogenic diet or Paleolithic ketogenic diet, because a lot of people in carnivore, such as Sean Baker and a couple of other folks, they do actually excess amounts of protein, and that can actually kick you out of ketosis. They focus on 80% fat. Ketogenic is usually 70% fat. So imagine 80% of your diet. Let's just say if you're doing like 2,000 calories a day, you're eating like 1,600 or 1,700 calories of that is going to be fat. Mm-hmm. So you're eating a lot of fat, and it's all these pork fat slabs. And man, I almost got addicted to fat. I don't even have a craving for sugar anymore. I love beef fat and animal fat. So it makes me feel amazing. It gives me energy.
All right. And so later on, you moved on to ozone therapy, correct?
Correct. Ozone, I still had, especially from one of my co-infections, which I learned causes a lot of issues with Lyme patients, because usually when you have Lyme, you have a couple of co-infections. Mine was Bartonella. And one of the worst things with Bartonella is even though the joint pain kind of improved, I still had some lingering joint pain, but you feel like your feet are on fire, your case. And I actually kept switching shoes and orthotics, and the neuropathy. And it also causes, it's almost like interstitial cystitis feeling, but you don't really have like an infection in your bladder. It's just constant pain and pressure. And it's almost like spasming in like your pelvic area. So it's almost like I felt like, my bladder, and in addition to that, I had this, that was right where my surgery is, my lower intestine, and it was right over my bladder. So all that inflammation and spasming so it's bladder pain and kind of surrounding joint pain, bad, circulation, and foot pain. It feels like you have like plantar fasciitis 24/7. So that was still lingering, and I can still kind of, and not, sometimes you just kind of feel lethargic too. It's just part of the Lyme, everybody's got their own symptoms. So I started looking into ozone therapy, and I'd learned that ozone therapy is very similar to hyperbaric oxygen therapy, where it's also known as a oxygen healing therapy. But, instead of just oxygen, where you got ozone, which is O3, you got the extra element of oxygen. A lot of different ways you can get ozone into your body. So everybody responds differently, but I started doing the major autohemotherapy, which is like ozone dialysis. You're taking blood out, you ozonate the blood, and you put it back into you. But when you put ozone gas into the blood and you put it back into you, the oxygen, it basically goes into oxygen. It basically helps oxygenate in your body, but that extra element of oxygen, that, part of O3, actually can improve your overall mitochondrial function and your ATP levels. And not just that, you kill off infections systemically, because it's not only antibacterial, it's anti-parasitic, it's anti-malarial, antifungal, and it's antiviral, which is why I've kind of did that separate post on people that are worried about this exaggerated COVID flu. I was like, you can actually treat COVID flu naturally and kind of regenerate your body and improve everything A to Z with ozone therapy.
Okay, so did ozone therapy help you with the bladder pain, the foot pain?
It did, substantially. And I try to make sure that I incorporate both hyperbaric oxygen and ozone therapy every week now, just to kind of keep things in remission. But also that, there's a lot of people that don't even have Lyme disease that they do a lot of, let's say athletes, for example. Like, there's a huge amount of athletes that actually use hyperbaric oxygen because it helps regenerate your body, especially when you're training really hard. You're actually putting quite a bit of damage on your muscle tissue. So a lot of people that need to heal faster, they do hyperbaric oxygen. A lot of them have the soft chambers at home like I do, but if you have a very severe, almost life-threatening skin disease, then yeah, you need to do some hard chamber kind of a hyperbaric to get up to 3.0 atmospheric units of oxygen into your body. And that's something that's not only kind of ultimate healing, it can make you feel sick at worse. The Herxheimer reaction, we call it you start herxing, because it kills off infections in your body too. So you're going to feel a little sicker before you feel better. The first time I got into the hard chamber, when I got out, I felt like I was dry vomiting. Like, I felt like I just had to throw up, but nothing was coming out. Just felt so sick. But over time, my body built the tolerance, and now I just feel amazing from it. So the ozone I try to do every week too. And yeah, and I mentioned to you that I went to Europe because I wanted to do some very intensive ozone therapy. And there's a clinic that's based out of Cyprus, the island country that's off of Greece, and they can do these 10 passes, 20 passes in a very short amount of time because it's a lot more efficient. And I just remember, like, when I came in, I still had some lingering symptoms. When I left, I felt like I had so much energy, and I didn't even kind of need any kind of caffeine or anything. I just wake up and I just noticed that I was able to like stand all day without pelvic or leg pain.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say, like on a scale from 0 to 10, where 0 is feeling like completely down and out and having pain and not being able to function, and 10 being like optimal health, where would you grade yourself on that scale?
I would say here, I'll just make two comparisons. Right when I was having the Lyme disease and all these other autoimmune issues and this horrible, regretful surgery by a crooked surgeon based out of UCI. And I didn't mention this to you, Paula, but I actually, I'm happy to disclose it to give just support for other people. I actually attempted suicide twice when I was so depressed. So that's like a level of like where you're saying 0 to 10, like 10 being like I'm optimum.
Yeah.
Like that is, I was at a 0 where I was like, there is nothing left to live for. If you would have seen my bodybuilding photos and my achievements, and I won a couple triathlons and like the mini sprint triathlons there locally, I was an ultimate athlete, and having everything taken away from you based on I'm going to have to tie my family into it because they said they actually insulted me for wanting to try alternative medicine. They said, listen to your doctors. And it was like a lot of condescending comments. And that's why I have to distance myself from family. A lot of my other supporters in the Lyme group had to do the same. And you start look into it, second guess some of these American doctors who are crooks and start looking to some natural treatment. I mean, oxygen is just natural. It's something that we need. And it's a separate topic that, those masks that they're forcing us to wear, it's actually depriving ourselves of oxygen. But now I'm not completely 100% like I was in law school. Law school, I was an animal. I was training a couple hours and a personal trainer full time. I still clerked at a law firm, and I went to school full time. I ran my own business. That's a 10. I would say I'm an 8 or 9, let's say right now, but I do picture myself getting to a 10 pretty soon if I keep this treatment up. And if I can throw these masks away. I think I'm going to be at a 10.
Okay, now as to the skin disease, when you stop the treatment, do the ulcers keep coming back, or are they?
I'm going to be honest. When I want to, because I'm a very busy attorney, and attorneys, we have a lot of stress. And I can tell you that if you don't manage your stress mentally, it will affect the rest of your body. When I started getting a little more confident, when I was like, yeah, I can handle 70, 80 clients right now, because I got a good reputation in the Los Angeles area where I got published recently as an attorney, even though I don't respect a lot of other attorneys. I'll be honest. I respect the health community a little bit better. I let the stress get into me because I wasn't doing the hyperbaric oxygen. I didn't really have time because I didn't have the time to drive out to the hard chamber clinic that I was doing like almost every week or once every other week. That takes about an hour and a half of your time because their treatments last up to like an hour and 15 minutes because you got to reach up to the pressure and then, you got to bring it back to the surface, they call it. You got to, reduce the pressure to let you out. That takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours with the travel time sometimes. And then I was working so much where I was staying late, and I noticed that I started I had and I still train. I still do some stunty stuff. I'm going to go back skydiving and rock climbing again. So I had a scratch because I was doing some indoor rock climbing, and I actually scratched myself on my leg. I noticed the wound wasn't healing like it was when I was doing the hyperbaric oxygen. And I was like, you know what? I got to keep this skin disease in remission. Because Pyoderma Gangrenosum, if you Google images, you can see how disgusting it can become. So I started doing the hyperbaric oxygen, especially I hit the hard chamber as fast as I could. Wound went away within a week, a couple days maybe. So I would say that you have to manage everything else. And a lot of people that do ozone therapy, the reason why I give a lot of respect to you, Paula, is because you also kind of believe in the carnivore diet, right?
That's right, yeah.
All right. So anyways, so I would say a lot of people that do ozone therapy, I'm amazed at some of these clinics. They give their patients like fruit juices, like while they're doing ozone. Like you're giving them straight up sugar. You're giving them straight up diabetes while you're trying to boost them. Like it's counterintuitive. So I think you need everything in conjunction then.
Mm-hmm. So what do you like better, hyperbaric or ozone therapy?
You know what? Just because I think the Paleomedicina group would agree with me on this too. They like things that are minimally invasive. They don't like IVs or needles unless it's the last resort. Hyperbaric oxygen I like the healing elements of it. I would say I got to give, especially with my severe skin disease, I can't really guarantee that ozone would treat that. That was one of the worst things with me. Hyperbaric oxygen was the main treatment. I still give credit to both of them, but I also like the fact that you don't have to, I learned phlebotomy, and I learned from your book, Paula, for ozone therapy, how to basically find my own veins because I can give myself my own IV right now. I don't have to go to a doctor, and I actually do better than the doctors. But ozone, is with hyperbaric oxygen, you just lay in a chamber. You got to make sure you keep moving your jaw because you're so much pressure, your ear is going to pop. So they give people gum. I was like, I'm not going to have that artificial sweetener bullshit. I'm not going to chew that. I'll move my jaw if I need to, okay? But it's minimally invasive.
Mm-hmm. So the hyperbaric oxygen works better for the skin disease than ozone therapy. Is that what you're saying?
For me, because I actually tried ozonated oils. I think it did kind of reduce the infection to a limited extent, but it didn't treat anything like the hyperbaric oxygen. It was night and day. And I actually did try, they do ozone bagging as well too. Like I said, just like the ozonated oil, it helped to a limited extent, but it did not eliminate it like the hyperbaric oxygen. Mine was, if you would have seen, I was wrapping myself up like a mummy. It was on my limbs. I had like these huge holes. I actually had the ulcer. That one photo I should have saved the ulcer photo that was very deep, but I was too afraid to take a picture because it was so disgusting. I was actually able to put my finger in the side of my hip and touch my bone inside. So that's how bad. But all of my wounds have healed. I've actually removed all these scars through plasma-rich platelet. I use microneedling. I actually taught myself how to extract my own plasma-rich platelet from my blood. I have a centrifuge. I'm actually developing a whole medical clinic at my home just for myself. I get the hyperbaric. I got a soft chamber. as you saw, like I do my own ozone DIV, direct intravenous. So I got my ozone generator, I got an oxygen tank, I got all the supplies that I got from your book. And now I got a centrifuge, and all these extractions, and I got my own tourniquet. I do the double tourniquet if it's a cold day and I can't find my veins, but I got great veins. I'm a former athlete, so yeah, I think I'm tying everything in. And now I started dating again because my libido's up. That's another improvement from ozone thing, and carnivore, definitely with the carnivore diet. Yeah, and basically, I'm actually ready to start. Kind of, I have nothing to hide. I'm not afraid to hide these wounds because I don't have these wounds and scars on my body anymore.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, when you say that you're like at an 8 or 9 on the scale from 0 to 10, so what is it that's still lingering? What is it that's still not 100%?
I strongly believe, and a lot of people can disagree with this, is that where you live, I think, especially the career you work, I work in a very stressful career, but I manage it where, I gotta say, to be a good attorney, you gotta be a kind of a good asshole. And I'm so defensive right now that I'm gonna let people know how I feel. I'll let them know that, first, one thing, I noticed that my immune system, since this excessive lockdown has installed from this corona flu, because it's just like every other seasonal flu, I noticed that when I have to wear these ridiculous masks, and I think I kind of showed you some of my masks, but this mask is useless. It's true. You can read my separate article, you can kind of quote that, but I notice if I'm wearing this too much throughout the day, if I have to go into businesses, grocery stores, or when I step out of my own, so this is my own individual office, right? To step out of my own office into the suite, into the rest of the building, I am forced to wear this stupid, ridiculous mask. And I learned it's actually depriving myself of oxygen. I notice I feel sicker when I'm wearing this stupid thing throughout the day. And a lot of my colleagues would agree with me. I'm hoping you can agree with me on some limited extent. That's one thing. Another thing is I notice when I get away from the big cities, I breathe better. Los Angeles is very polluted. But another thing, and it's open to discussion, but the radiation levels in Los Angeles are very high as well. You got an extreme amount of like installed 5G towers that you have to worry about. Someone with Lyme disease that you're trying to keep in remission, if you're getting radiation, that's going to compromise your immune system. And you know what? It's a lot of it's keeping a positive attitude too, and that's why I need to kind of deter away from certain family members, because they're not providing support to me that the rest of Lyme and the carnivore and the oxygen healing community is provided to me. So I think you need to tie in all those things. And I think I have to deal with some of those obstacles right now in life that it's kind of keeping me to get to 10. So I need to move out of California. I'm not sure if, I know you said you lived in California for a period of time, but we have one of the worst governors possible. And he is one of the reasons. I just got licensed in the state of Texas, and I'm keeping that option to move out of California. A lot of my friends, they're from the fitness industry. They're personal trainers with me through college and law school. I still keep in touch. A lot of them moved to Texas, Colorado, and these open states where you don't have all these excessive government regulations, and they don't have to wear these stupid masks. And they said they have a new quality of life. They're happier and they feel better every time they wake up. So that's something to consider.
All right. Well, that was very, very inspiring. I hope this will also inspire other people. And I didn't know that the disease was so serious. I'm actually gonna look it up and look at those horrendous pictures because I want to know.
Yeah, no. When I actually showed my phone, when I saw that diagnosis on the biopsy, I was like, "How bad?" Because these ulcers are already pretty bad. I mean, I just described to you. I could touch my hip bone with my finger inside of a wound. That's how deep it was. It's like a big hole in my hip. And now it looks amazing. You wouldn't even notice that I ever had a wound. But I've seen some photos of some other patients. A lot of them had to get their limbs amputated because they got so infected. But I met a lot of these individuals that didn't have the same exact disease, but something very similar, or like a very bad skin disease or diabetic ulcers at the clinics. And they at the Hyperbaric clinic, at Advanced Hyperbarics, you can see it in my kind of referenced article. And they're going to be moving because they have a very spiteful landlord. They're going to be moving to a new location. But I'm trying to get everybody that's in the Los Angeles County, if you're in Southern California, you need to get to this clinic. Not only if you have any kind of skin diseases, but because these patients that I met, I became friends with them because it's amazing. They have their own testimonials. They prevented from losing a leg by doing hyperbaric oxygen. But the FDA is never going to approve this. Either is your crooked health insurance company, because it's all tied in with bullshit politics in the United States.
Yeah, it was interesting that they told you 2,500 for one session. I can imagine that's, you can buy your own hyperbaric oxygen chamber for that.
Yeah, you can actually get a refurbished chamber from a reputable company with a warranty for sometimes I think I saw as low as 3,000. Mine was closer to 4,000 or 5,000, but I got a warranty with it, and I got my own oxygen concentrator. It's got the mask in it too, and it kind of helps because if there is like bad air, like quality, like even in my own kind of condo, or if it's a damp building, if you got some mold that you may be inhaling and get the particles, you get a clean chamber. I keep it closed when I'm not in it, and when I open it back up, you're breathing pure from that oxygen concentrator, and you're getting oxygen infused in your body. Like I breathe better when I get out. So, and I try to prevent, I'm just telling folks, really look into what these masks are going to do, especially if you're a parent. Think twice before suffocating your child with this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I don't want to keep you more because you've been so generous with your time anyway, but already, I mean, but it's really interesting because, Dr. Lahodny, the inventor of the 10 pass, when I attended one of his seminars, he had like a collection of over 20 different pictures, and many of them were chronic wounds that would not heal with antibiotics, like multiple courses of antibiotics. Some people even had surgery to fix the wounds, and they would just not heal up. And then he would give them one 10 pass or a couple of 10 passes, and it would just heal up right away. But you're saying that you've seen better results with hyperbaric oxygen on your skin disease than with ozone therapy, yes?
With my specific skin disease, but I should tell you, like I told you yesterday, Paula, that I've seen some peer-reviewed, published clinical trials where that Pyoderma Gangrenosum showed promising results for a good amount of patients with ozone therapy, not hyperbaric oxygen, but it was using those 10 passes. It's something that you're getting like the most amount of ozone into your body. Mm-hmm. There's actually like only one nurse in like all of Los Angeles County that I'll trust with my veins because he doesn't miss it. Like I have great veins. Everybody always like when I have to donate blood or something like that, I donate blood occasionally, and they always always mention you have great vascularity. And it's amazing that I go to these nurses and like they can't even like poke the vein. They're like poking to the left and right, and they give me all these bruises. So my friend Daniel, he's a nurse at Holtorf Medical Clinic, and he's the only one that's allowed to touch my veins because he's the only one that actually could find and do a perfect kind of like IV without any kind of bruises and all that. You want to look like a heroin addict. And I have an additional 10 minutes if you have a couple questions. My court call can wait. They're going to be putting me on hold. So if you're an attorney in California, you got to do all these court calls where instead of appearing in court, they're afraid of the virus. And they're wearing these ridiculous masks, even though no one's around them, but they want us to appear telephonically. That's how bad I even had to do a trial on Zoom. So I appreciate the Zoom because this is a good way to spread out our message, Paula. At the same time, if you're a child, you need to get back into the classrooms. You can't learn behind a computer because it's going to fry your brain. But use it to connect and spread the word. This is why I do appreciate it.
Okay. Well, yeah, ozone therapy and hyperbaric and carnivore, those are really amazing remedies. So yeah, let's keep spreading the word. And Chris, thank you very much for doing just that.
Thank you very much, Paula.